Go straight to item 10 on the agenda, which is 101 Woodcroft. Over to you, Chris.
Just again, it was remiss of me at the start, but Woodcroft is indeed in my ward, so a non-pecuniary interest is an application.
Noted.
This application is at 101 Woodcroft, and it's for the change of use from a C3 dwelling house to a C2 children's care home. So the application seeks full planning permission for the change of use from a single dwelling house, Class C3, to a children's care home. It would facilitate the provision of a maximum of 3 residents. The applicant has confirmed that care would be given by a team of at least 3 staff members at any given time, working in shifts of 12. These would be from 8 to 8, morning or evening. The registered manager will be on site Monday to Friday. No internal or external alterations are proposed to facilitate the change of use. And the applicant is working with the Essex Residential Children's Strategy team. The site will be monitored and there will be Ofsted requirements. Here we have the site location plan, an aerial image, some site photos from the public realm, some site photos showing the rear garden space, the existing and proposed floor plans with no change, the front and rear elevations, again no change, and the side elevations where there would be no change. So in terms of the key issues, the principle of development, provision of an important housing facility to meet the rising demand for child support facilities. There's an expression of support from Essex County Council Children's Residential Strategy team, and the reversion to a family dwelling house is not precluded if circumstances change. In terms of character and appearance, there will be no changes to the building itself, and visually it would not therefore be readily distinguishable as a children's home within the street scene. In terms of residential amenity, there will be appropriate monitoring and management of the CT use. Staff would always be present, and there will be Ofsted and County Council monitoring. There will be a requirement for the applicant to submit an internal noise scheme and operational plan prior to its first use. In terms of highways and parking, no objections were received from Essex Highways. So the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions outlined in the report, which are the time condition of 3 years. The site is to only be used as a children's home and for no other purpose, including any other use that will be permitted within Class C2. Maximum occupancy of 3 children aged between 10 and 17. And there will be a requirement for an internal noise scheme, a noise management plan, and an operational management plan, and then for it to be in accordance with the approved plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Members, questions and clarification? Oh, no, it's got, sorry, I'm running away myself. Yeah, so we've got 3 against, one is making a statement. Do you want to read the statement first, Chris?
I can do that first if you want.
Yep,
yeah.
Okay. That's the Carvin on Pope statement, although you're here, been read for you.
You'll have to time me.
Yep, okay.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I have lived in the community for many years and I speak on behalf of many long-standing residents, older people, vulnerable adults and families with young children who are deeply concerned about this proposal. This application is not for an ordinary home. What is being proposed is a fully staffed 24-hour operation. It includes frequent shift changes, regular professional visits and constant movement on taxis and support vehicles throughout the day and night. This is not domestic living. It is institutional use and it would bring a level of activity that our quiet residential streets simply cannot absorb. Under the Town and Country Planning Use Classes Order 1987, this is clearly a materially different use from the normal C3 dwelling. It must therefore be assessed according to its real operational demands, which are wholly at odds with the character of this peaceful, remote residential area. The National Planning Framework, NPPF, requires decision makers to protect the amenity, well-being and living conditions of existing residents. This proposal fails that test. Our community includes elderly people who depend on a calm and predictable environment, vulnerable residents who would be distressed by irregular noise and activity, and young children who need stability, routine and peaceful surroundings in which to grow and feel safe, allowing them to flourish and later enrich our community and society. No one is criticising the young people who may live in the home. Our concern is with the operational model, the constant staffing, the unpredictable movements, the late night disturbances which fundamentally change the environment for those who already live here. A residential street designed for quiet family life is not an appropriate place for high intensity round-the-clock facility. The Council also has a legal responsibility under the Equality Act 2010 and the Public Sector Equality Duty to consider how increased disturbances may disproportionately affect older residents, disabled people and those with long-term health conditions. If these impacts have not been thoroughly assessed, the decision risks being legally unsound. It is important to remember that the previous certificate of lawfulness application for the property was refused. The nature of the use has not changed. The environment has not changed, only the format of the application has changed. If it was unsuitable then, it remains unsuitable now. For all of these reasons, conflict with planning policy, statutory equality duties, and the clear incompatibility with the character and needs for our existing community, I respectfully urge members to refuse this application.
Thank you very much. Half a minute spare. Well done. Rosita Cabia? I apologise for the pronunciation. You've got 3 minutes. Do you like to push one of the buttons till the red light comes on?
Chair, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm speaking on behalf of our local residents to outline clearly why this proposal must be refused. The development represents the wrong use in the wrong location, and the level of planning harm has been seriously underestimated. What is being proposed is not normal use. It involves 24-hour staffing, shift changes throughout the night, continual professional visits, transport movements and unpredictable noise and disturbance. This is institutional operation, not domestic living. Planning inspectors consistently reject similar proposals because they cannot be absorbed into quiet family streets without causing significant harm. The residential neighbourhood like ours, home to elderly residents, vulnerable adults and young families, was never designed to support this level of operational intensity. Approving this application would set a dangerous precedent, signalling that any peaceful street could be converted into a round-the-clock facility. Residents would face irregular noise, staff movements at all hours, and disturbance linked to emergency call-outs or crisis situations. National planning policy is clear. People are entitled to the quiet enjoyment of their homes, and development use must provide a high standard of amenity. This proposal cannot achieve that. I also need to speak personally as a parent. My family, including our young and impressionable child, has already endured extreme disturbance from this property. We have heard word-for-word late-night narration of self-harming, accounts of drug use, and conversations involving weapons being exchanged between visiting youths. Our home has been repeatedly exposed to police raids with repeated instances of doors being broken down and then missing for months. We have even faced arson next door, which almost took over our entire property. No child should have to grow up hearing and witnessing this. No family should be forced to accept this as part of their everyday living. We have the right to protect our daughter, her safety, her immediate environment. Residents also have serious concerns. Residents also have serious concerns about the property's history, all while under the same ownership. Before this planning process even began, the address was subject to repeated police attendance and documented serious incidents. It is wholly inappropriate to place vulnerable children into a location that is already demonstrated such instability. The Council has legal duties under the Equality Act of 2010 and the Public Sector Equality Duty to consider how increased disturbance will affect protected groups, including the elderly and young children. If this assessment cannot be fully carried out, the decision may be legally vulnerable. Children's homes must be located where their operational demands can be safely managed, typically detached properties with space, parking or meaningful separation from neighbours. This site meets none of those requirements. Members should also remember that a previous certificate of lawfulness application to this property was refused. Nothing has changed since then. It was unsuitable and it remains unsuitable. For all those reasons, amenity, safety, legal duties and the lived reality faced by us residents who live next to this, I am wall to wall with this. I've had to silence my daughter's bedroom out. It needs to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you want a drink of water or anything? Want some water? Take some water. I can't give you anything stronger, I'm afraid. Shireen Kashif? You've got 3 minutes and press the button to the red.
Okay. I live right next door to 101 Woodcroft. I want to make it clear that my concerns are about the impact of this operation on our street, not about the children themselves. I understand they need support, but this is simply not the right place for a setup of this intensity. What's being proposed is not normal family use. It's a fully staffed 24-hour service. That means at least 2 staff on site at all time, shift changes, day and nights, taxis and professionals come in and go in, and activity levels far higher than the typical home. We've been told it's just 3 children, but the reality is the number of adults going in and out will be much higher. I've lived through the impact of an intensified use of the property before, and it was incredibly difficult for my family. We've had repeated disturbances, noise at all hours, items thrown in our garden, and even police visits. I eventually had to move my disabled daughter's bedroom as it was affecting her well-being. Our gardens and bedrooms sit directly next to each other, so even small disturbances carry straight through. Although this proposal is different from the former HMO, the level of staffing and constant coming and going still make it intensive institutional style use. It is not comparable to a C3 home, and it does not fit comfortably in a quiet family street. Parking and traffic are also real concerns. There's no off-street parking at all, yet this type of service will generate multiple vehicle movements every day, staff cars, handover, visits from professionals, taxis and so on. Woodcroft is already tightly parked. Adding more regular vehicle activity risks blocking driveways and creates access problems, especially for emergency services. I also want to highlight how this affects the most vulnerable people living nearby. My child is extremely sensitive to noise and disruption, and I'm currently expecting twins. We also have elderly neighbours and others with health conditions. Even moderate disturbances can have a big impact on people like us, and the council has a duty to consider that. Finally, in terms of benefit, this is a private commercial placement. It doesn't solve the wider issue of children needing homes in Essex. A 3-bedroom commercial operations offers very limited benefit to the local authority, but the impact on the immediate neighbours would be significant. In short, this is the wrong location for an operation of this intensity. It would harm residential amenity, add parking and safety pressures, and change the character of a quiet family street. For these reasons, I respectfully ask the committee to refuse the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Would you like to turn the mic on? Take it. Check. Thank you, Jake. Questions and clarifications? Councillor Morrison.
A couple of questions, actually. At the top of page 35, and I think one of the residents referred to this, it may actually have been in the statement, I'm not completely sure. We are told that on the 6th of August this year, this similar application was deemed not lawful use. So why was that the conclusion, and what has changed? I have a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, thanks, councillor.
Myers,
Through
yeah.
you, Chair. A certificate of lawfulness is to do with the lawfulness of the building. And in this instance, when it was applied, was it a material change of use? Although it's a change of use in terms of use class, was it a material change of use? And it was found to be a material change of use, which meant that certificate wasn't issued because it was considered that planning permission would be required. This planning application has come before us and to be assessed on its own merits. What's the grace?
Okay, Councillor Morrison.
In addition, we have been given information by the residents of what I could refer to as history of bad behaviour, antisocial behaviour, some potentially dangerous behaviour. So is it correct then that we're being asked to ratify an existing situation?
My understanding is this is a proposed change of use. It's what's existing is, or was, a HMO, from what I'm understanding from what the objectors are saying. That's a different use. This, again, going back to the application, must be dealt with on its own merits.
That's a sort of bit of technicality, isn't it, that? Because the same people are living there. And it's just now putting it, regularising it, is that right?
Well, I don't think that's correct, no. An HMO is separate,
Yeah, separate. It's a
people
different
living
category.
together.
Yeah.
This care home is for young people who supported, special needs supported living. It's two different things.
So is sorry.
To be certain that I do understand, so an HMO is generally a building that houses a number of adults, normally adults.
Unrelated adults,
yes, so this is a residential care home for young people, in this case 3, aged between 10 and 17. So there is a difference.
Questions and clarification? Yeah. Jake Shepherd. Yeah, Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. All three speakers referred to the Equalities Act, very rightly so, a very serious public duty that this authority takes very seriously. Without mentioning, the report does have a section dedicated to the implications on the Equalities Act. Can councillors reassure us that, and I'll find the quote, but basically within the report you say there's no officers consider that the application does not give rise to any concerns in respect to the above being the Equalities Act. Could officers confirm they're assured of that judgment?
Might deal with that one?
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you, Chair. I think looking at noise impact, amenity, need and mitigation through conditions, we have assessed that through the appraisal of this planning application.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 questions. 2 I've asked on a previous application tonight that are very similar, but I want to ask them again. I expect to probably get the same answers. But have officers modelled or estimated the expected number of daily movements, staff, visitors, taxis, professionals, etc., versus a normal household, both in daytime and at night, especially in light of the reasons for the refusal of the certificate of lawful use?
Thank you, Councillor, through you, Chair. No, we haven't. It's for the same matters of scale. The reasons for the refusal of the certificate of lawfulness, I think we're partly about that, but again, because it's about a lawful issue and it was found to be a material change of use, this is what we're looking at in terms of planning application here in front of us.
Thank you. Question 2, how have the officers assessed compliance with policy H4 and which of the 4 sections of H4 are met for this change of use?
This question, again, I'd say looking at the principle of development, we looked at policies H4 but also L2. And L2 would support such a change of use where there's demonstrable need for such a change of use. So my question on H4 is, again, we go back to looking at principle, we look at it on the round. And yes, we can look at it on the round when we come to conclusions. And that is all policies in the local plan, which are relevant, and national planning policy as well.
Thank you, Chair. I won't ask the third since the officer has covered the detail within the answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shepherd, sorry.
No, thank you, Chair. Of course, we must consider solely the application in front of us, but I do remark that compared to the previous application or another application of this nature, there was a clause to revert the change of use back to C2 should circumstances change. Is there any reason why officers felt it wasn't appropriate or necessary in this instance to attach the same condition or wording in this application?
Who's going to answer that one? Chris?
Under condition 2, it does say that this site should only be used as a children's care home for no other purpose, including any use permitted within Class C2.
Shepherd again.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, and thank you, officers, for that clarification. So, and again, it's really important to stress there's a demonstrable need for child services and child housing, but should for some reason that need or this capacity not be taken up in future, is there the possibility of it returning to just a residential house? Not a HMO, of course, but just a normal house.
Yeah, as I said previously, so there's no internal alterations, no external alterations, so the process of converting that back to a dwelling house is not an onerous task. Because it's, as we said, under C2, that's limiting it, they would need a planning application for that change of use to go back to a C3 dwelling house.
Chair, with that, I think we've all discussed it. Would it be prudent to put that clause in as part of the planning application? To allow it to go back to a C2 dwelling, as the previous one already had one, just to give consistency.
Yeah. Okay. Not sure we can do that, can we? It would automatically, you mean once it's been granted, it stays as under category, those, use clause?
Chair, sorry, just through you, and Councillor Shepherd, can I just understand I'm slightly confused now. There was the proposed change of use from a C3 to a C2, and specifically with a condition limiting it to a children's home use within C2 class. Are you asking for something that enables the reversion back to C3, as was, obviously, there's a question here about the HMO use of this property. Is that what you're asking for, that the condition can say that you can revert to C3? I think we'd need to be a little bit careful about that. All we're saying is the physical nature of the building has not changed and could be occupied. Whether there's a question there that it would require planning permission to be changed use back from C2 to C3 to be occupied as a family dwelling, I think is the point of issue.
No, thank you, Chair, and I welcome the clarification. It was just, I suppose it's retaining to consistency around with with item 8, there was wording around, it was something along the lines of circumstances change or such. It was, but of course I recognise, you wouldn't want the HMO to go back, so I will let that one go. I think you're right. I trust officers' judgment to have formed the conditions appropriately. It was just an observation on how the wording for the previous condition was in Upper Stonyfield versus in Woodcroft. I'll see if I can find a clause.
Nope. So you're looking. Any more questions while Councillor Shepherd's looking at that?
Just to, sorry, through you, Chair, for Councillor Shepherd's benefit, I think I've got that item of the report in front of me. So for the item we heard earlier this evening. I can see the same condition around specifying the use as a children's home within Class C2 and for no other purpose within that class. I don't think it has a reversion clause, unless, certainly not in the condition.
I think you may be right. No, apologies for that. I think it was earlier in the report. I'm very happy to.
I'm not sure what you're after. You're after trying to get that if the sorry, councillor. Yeah.
It seems the previous application was worded in such a way that it would allow continuity of the previous use should the circumstances for a children's home change. But I do concede that it's very unlikely that demand for children placement homes is going to change so much in the future that.
Well, yeah, we don't know, do we? You know, Councillor Watson.
Thank you. I just want to say I completely hear your experiences from living next door to a HMO and the experience that a 17-year-old person has been living in that HMO, and that goes back to the point that I made in the earlier statement that no young person should be living in an unregistered, unstaffed house. And I would be disappointed if the new proposal wasn't managed better and that you didn't receive not a better service, because you're not receiving the service, so that's not what I'm saying, but that it wasn't an improvement. And I hope that Essex County Council will run a good service next year. And you know, I do hear what you're saying, but a HMO is very different from a children's home. And I just wanted to express that I understand that you would be, if you've lived under those circumstances, you would be really concerned. But I hope your experience improves with the new placements.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. At the risk of, I'm not want to repeat everything word for word I said on a previous application, I acknowledge there is a desperate need for young people in care to be looked after in the appropriate setting. My question is this the appropriate setting? And I do not believe, given what we've already seen, given the report, given what we've heard from the neighbours living there, that this is the right place. I agree with the speaker earlier on who talked about care homes being in detached properties with space for parking, with space for coming and going, and I don't think this is correct. I think there will be a demonstrable issue of loss of amenity in the form of the movements to the local residents, and I will not take H4 in the round as the planning officers do. I'm looking at the 4 items of H4 and it meets none of those for a change of use, so I will be voting against.
Shepherd.
Thank you very much. Again, I'll try not to repeat myself, but it's important to recognise this is a separate application and has to be determined on its own merits. So it is worth saying some of those points again because they do apply here. This isn't a planning matter, but it is worth noting that it's within walking distance of an outstanding secondary school and sixth form. So I think it is appropriate in that sense that it's actually, you know, it's a lovely place, and I have spoken with ward residents there, not these ward residents, I must say, but different ward residents there in Woodcroft who, you know, it's a very charming place. It's a place where I think children will feel safe, nurtured and supported, and being so close to such an outstanding secondary school up the road, I think is the best place for children to have a start. That's not a planning matter, and again, it's important to stress I can only determine the application based on its merits in front of me, but I am satisfied with officers having presented to us on this case that a balancing exercise has taken place, and on balance the needs and the merits outweigh the concerns I've heard, and having asked questions about the Equalities Act implications and questioning what other things may be appropriate to put in, I'm satisfied that those queries have been answered, so thank you to officers. The one thing I just will end on is I noticed in the report, I've lost it again now, but it says that the management of the provision will be by a care home manager who has, I think it was 18 years experience of managing homes. So that again is very heartening, and just to relay what Councillor Watson said, this should be a very different situation to what has come before. And as a ward councillor, I can only say to the applicant, I would encourage them to reach out to me and other ward councillors to help manage that relationship. It's going to be very important moving forward. Thank you, Chair.
Saggers?
Thank you, Chair. As I said, I won't go over some of the stuff that Councillor Johnson said. But if you take this on par with other ones we've seen tonight, the things you've got to take into account is the footprint of the property for what you're being asked to look at. It has ensuite facilities rather than the previous one that only had one bathroom. It's a larger spread out footprint. You've got to take it in with the amenities, although it's not a planning matter. It has a specialist school not too far. There's another one currently in construction, not too far from that. See a great quality senior school, another primary school just around it. It's closer to shops and things than the previous one. Parking is, again, a concern because it is near a senior school, so drop-off times, pick-up times are going to be a problem. It is in that area constantly. But taking on its merits, it's got a bad history. Should that stop it being converted in something that should be well managed, that has tight frameworks? It's one to be considered by everybody, that hopefully the past is what it was and it gets a better outcome.
Anybody else want to make? Yeah, I'm just trying to clarify something. And it may be not, you may not want to hear it, but you may be better off having a children's home there than it continues as a HMO, which is why you're getting lots of problems, isn't it? If it becomes a children's home, it's going to be staffed. It's going to be covered by Ofsted. So, you know, there are complaints processed, but as a HMO, it's almost free. They can put, okay, they're limited to the number of people they can put in there, but you're obviously suffering, or have been suffering, from the people that have been living there. One assumes that those will go, and the Home Essex will put the new residents in there with staff 24 hours, 7 days a week. So, you know, it is a difficult one, but, you know, I think I'd prefer, if it was me, to have a children's home there than a HMO. Anyway. Agenda item 11, which is land east of 115 Woolly Hook.